It's essential that to avoid damaging or marking the liner, shoes are removed at this stage of the build. Unfold the liner and lay it to suit the shape of the floor, making sure to line up the floor corners of the liner with the floor corners of the pool structure. Starting at a corner, take one of the walls and feed it into the liner lock. The weight of the liner will then hold it into position. Carefully work your way around the pool, paying particular attention to the corners to make sure they line up correctly. Use your feet to gently push the corners of the liner into place. We recommend using underlay tape to completely seal the fittings on the pools, such as skimmers, inlets and lights. The idea is to make the pool structure as airtight as possible. Using a vacuum cleaner with just the hose attached, peel back a small section of liner and insert the hose as far down to the pool floor as possible. Make sure that nothing can get stuck behind the liner. Attach as much liner back as possible into position around the hose, then use the underlay tape to seal around the hose. You can now turn on the vacuum to help you suck the liner into position. You can now start filling the pool with water. Continue to push any creases out of the floor by sliding your foot from the middle of the pool towards the pool walls. After filling the pool with approximately 25mm of water, you can start to work on the main drains, so at this point the water needs to be turned off. Carefully feel for the head of the two screws under the liner. Make a tiny cut in the cross of the screw head. Then gently tease the screw head through the small incision you have made. You should have exposed the screw head. Now carefully expose the other screw on the opposite side to the one you've just done. Once you've exposed both screw heads, you need the faceplate for the drain. Remove one of the screws you have exposed and insert the screw through the faceplate back into the hole and start to tighten the screw. Then swing the faceplate to the correct position and remove and insert the second screw. You can now fit the rest of the screws, as the faceplate now gives the positioning of the remaining screws. A Assuming the pipework for the main drains has had a ball valve connected and the main drain face plate secured, you can carefully remove the liner material within the gasket with a sharp knife. The main drain cover plate can now be screwed into place. The pore needs to be filled to approximately 50mm below the fitting. Very carefully make an incision into the cross of the screw head. Once you have made the incisions, gently push the screw heads through the liner, ensuring the holes are as small as possible. One gasket is on the fitting behind the liner. You now need to stick a gasket on the faceplate, ensuring the holes line up. Once you have done this, remove the top screw that is exposed. Insert the screw through the faceplate back into the small hole you have made in the liner. Now remove the bottom screw and let the faceplate swing into position. You can now insert the second screw through the faceplate and second screw hole you have made. Always use a handheld screwdriver. Gently tighten the screws and fit the other two screws. Cut out the liner material within the faceplate. Finally screw in the eyeball fixed grate fitting. The pipework kit which is supplied is generous, and there can be variations in fitting. Use pipe cleaner on both pipe and fittings, as this removes the dirt or grease on them and helps with adhesion of the glue. Give both the pipe and fitting a good coverage of glue and push together until set. On warm days you may have to work fast, as the glue can set quickly. Apply plenty of ptfe to the conduit thread and screw it tightly to the threaded reducer. Glue the socket PFT and threaded reducer together. Use pipe cleaner first on both fittings and add a good layer of glue to each fitting. It is important to make the whole assembly watertight. Establish how much pipe you want to use and cut it to length. glue a 50mm slip adapter on the end of the piece of pipe you have just cut. Now glue it into the back of the light fitting. On the inside of the pool, allow the water level to rise just below the light fitting, which is now behind the liner. Carefully feel for the screws. Using a sharp knife, cut just the cross of the screw head. Push the screw heads through the liner. Try and keep the holes as small as possible. Line up the holes and stick the gasket to the faceplate. Undo the top screw and insert it back through the faceplate into the same hole it came from. Give the screw a couple of turns just to hold it onto the faceplate. When the faceplate swings downward, you can locate the bottom screw and carry out the same procedure. You can now insert the other two screws and tighten all 4 screws using a handheld screwdriver. When the faceplate and gasket are firmly fixed into position, carefully cut out the excess liner material in the middle of the light fitting. Now the light fitting in the pool wall is exposed, you need to get the cable from the light up through the conduit into the deck box where a connection can be made. It's easier to thread the cable through the conduit by taping a zip tie or similar to the end before pushing the cable through to the deck box. Once you have secured the cable in the deck box, you can screw the light fitting into place. Installing the skimmer is the same method as all the other pool fittings, except that the screws are in the four corners of the skimmer. When the water level is just below the skimmer, carefully insert a small cut in the cross of the screw heads and gently push the screw head through the liner. Apply the gasket carefully to the skimmer faceplate, ensuring the holes line up. Undo a top corner screw and insert it through the faceplate and back through the small hole you created. Swing the skimmer up and do the same for the other top corner. You can now undo the bottom two screws and screw them back through the faceplate into the small holes you made and gently tighten the four screws. You can now insert the rest of the screws. Try and do this systematically, working from the middle of the skimmer, top and bottom, working your way to the outer edges, ensuring all screws are tightened. Carefully cut the liner from inside of the skimmer with a sharp knife. Once you are satisfied that the skimmer is sealed, press the cover plate into position.